Hello, welcome to this Monday's MYM movement. My name is Annette. Where each Monday I show you a release and or activation exercise using the powerful tool of somatic awareness, where we stay in the present moment to feel and experience the sensations within our body and any of the emotions that may come with, so we can really effect positive change within our own body and our own mind. So today I'm going to show you an exercise that will dovetail on what I showed you last week. So last week we were utilizing the connection to the center of our body and our feet in a standing position to experience the loop of energy that occurs from the center of our body, what we call the lower triangle of chakras, or that engagement of the pelvic floor muscles towards the navel, utilizing those bracing and anchoring muscles and that energetic space in our body where we can operate really functionally from if we have the capacity to utilize those muscles in a strong yet not over tensed manner. And then when we utilize that anchoring, we can go up the spine or down through the legs to make a more firm, not only connection, but actually we can mobilize on either side of that anchoring really effectively. And when we have that connection to the feeling of what it's like to use and affect the change in those muscles through that muscular control and experience of feeling, we can totally transform the way we engage our body in movement. And so today we're going to do a really simple twisting exercise, and we're going to utilize that connection to the center of our body, rooting downward, allowing us to rise upward and mobilize our spine more effectively from that anchor point. So the exercise is going to be a rotation from the base of the body with our legs in a split position, both knees bent. I'm going to start with my right leg forward. Both feet are flexed, drawing the toes towards the shin, but not intensely. So we're just bringing them into about a 90-degree position at our ankle. And then if this position is causing a lot of tension in your hips and you're getting a lot of flexion of your spine, please get yourself up on a block or even two if you need it. And then the right arm is going to be reaching behind to the floor if your hips are down. If your hips are lifted, use another block or something else to give that right hand a lift, so your hand and your pelvis are at the same level. Okay, so use those blocks if you need it. Okay. So in this position, I've got some rooting to the right side hip because I've got this increased movement or need for mobility in that upper hip, in this case the left. I'm not going to have that natural anchoring or rooting of my left sit bone. However, I'm still working to ground from the center of my body. So we can take this one of two ways. We can either go into the cue of rooting and reaching that left sit bone down, and or we can engage those lower abdominal muscles in that lengthening or rooting of the tailbone that we talked about last week, which puts you in just a little bit of what we call a posterior pelvic tilt, which means the top of the hip tips back as we work to lengthen the tailbone, rooting it towards the floor. And when you engage in that action, you'll feel the natural kind of reaching of that left sit bone and a feeling of activation in our core muscles and our pelvic floor. Again, we can also go in the direction of feeling for that left sit bone and rooting the left sit bone down, and you'll feel a natural pelvic tilt posterior and a lengthening of the tailbone come as you do that. Now, you can play around with experiencing both of those actions as a way to get you rooted and grounded. But in either case, the somatic awareness is the awareness of the engagement of the pelvic floor and the low belly, and that feeling of getting the rooting of the tail. And that action allows us to use the anchoring, but not the overactivation at our lower belly, and that rooting so that we can go into our rotation and effectively move all the joints of the spine, potentially, which we wouldn't have access to if we didn't have any stability or anchoring here in our body. So I want you to begin by initiating either one of two of those cues, which is either rooting or lengthening that left sit bone down, or scooping in and rooting down the tailbone towards the floor. So as we engage that core and we're creating that rooting, we feel that intention to root then help us get this sense of looping energy back in to the core of the body to anchor our movement. So the right leg is forward, my right hand's gonna go behind at about a 45-degree angle to that right hip. The left hand is gonna come across the body to rest on the right shoulder. And the shoulders are kind of relaxing, so the shoulder blades glide really effortlessly down the back. As we start at this beginning point, we're gonna take an inhale. And as you exhale slowly, you're gonna wind the spine from that engagement of the core into a rotation, leading with the engagement of the core to wind it, ending with the gaze over that right shoulder, and then coming back and unwinding from the low belly so that the spine realigns from the base all the way back up. And this is the inhale coming back to center. And then the exhale winds you into that twist from the root of the body. And then inhaling from the root, unwind back to center. We're going to do it a couple more times. Now really connect to the feeling of moving up the spine from the anchoring of the low belly, exhaling, twisting from here, moving up the spine to make your rotation. As you do, maintaining that rooted quality that we set the pelvis in, and then inhaling, unwind back to center. And then again, we're going to exhale, winding into the rotation from the base, from that anchoring and strength of our low belly. And then inhaling, feeling what's happening along the length of your spine as you're really aware of all the segments of the spine that can move when you have that anchoring in the low belly. So as you do this exercise, it really benefits you a tremendous amount to feel how you're moving. And as I guide you, of course, that goal is to be able to get the segments of the spine to move from one level to the next as you wind and unwinding from one level to the next, to the next, to the next, until you finally return to center. But the only way we're going to have access to that is if we actually can experience what's happening in our body. And when we hit those points of being stuck, which is perfectly acceptable, it's all the process, a part of the process of improving the way we engage our body in both the physicality of the body and the emotional experience that we interpret in our physical body. And that step-by-step process can really only happen if we can be in the present moment. And we can feel and engage what's happening in our physical body as we act in these movements that I guide you through. So that feeling of really knowing what it's like to move through the spine and knowing what it's like to be stuck in certain areas, again, that's okay, right? One step at a time. Each time you discover something new through awareness, you know what you're working with. And that can be a point of awareness where your attention draws to create improved movement and potentially kind of unhinge some of the stuckness in those areas in the physical body. And any emotion that you start to notice, any agitation or maybe the awareness of freedom that happens when you actually create just a little bit more movement as you engage. So I invite you to try this on the other side. And again, that awareness of rooting from the center, engaging those muscles, and then winding and unwinding and really feeling what's happening along the length of the spine as you go through about 3 to 4 reps on each side. So So thank you again for being here. This mission is really important to me because if we continue to move through the world and we don't have a strong connection to self, it's really, really hard to see and experience the world around us, those we care about, the environment we're living in. And so it's really important for me to bring people into their bodies where they can experience this groundedness and this freedom to be in a relationship with self, relationship with others. So thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Namaste.
If you liked my video, please hit the subscribe button below. It helps me to continue to serve you and others.